Hey guys, my man cave is a total mess. I don't know what happened. I was straightening things out and putting things in all kinds of boxes and sorting, but all of a sudden everything kind of uh, you can't really see from there, but everything is kind of exploded on me all over the place. And rather than dealing with that, I'm gonna make a vlog. Um, I've got a beer, a sleepy vlog, of course. This is Pyramid Apricot Ale, which I haven't had this in years. I actually during the summer I like to have fruit ales, um, which is I believe regular beer just with a little bit of fruit extract in it. It just says ale with natural flavor, so I assume they put a little bit of apricot juice in it. It does. Tastes really good. I love a lot of different kinds of beers. This is actually the second beer I've had this week, in case you're starting to worry about me becoming an alcoholic. Last night at work, we had a happy hour in our office. They bring out beer and food. One of my coworkers got Ruffles potato chips and dipped them in chocolate and let the chocolate harden and put those out as a dish. Unfortunately for her, there was also ice cream, and so people ate a lot of ice cream. But potato chips dipped in chocolate, that was a new thing to me. They were Ruffles. It tasted very salty. Um, I'm still kind of buzzing from my Kandy purchase. My artist edition Kandy. No, I won't make another video about it. But I did want to say that I really enjoyed the other people's videos who made videos about it. I've seen one by Howlermouse and one by Solid ST Bend. I think I got your name wrong. Shannon. So Tim Howlermouse and Shannon, Solid Bendy guy. And and I'm hoping more people will make them. I know that Constant Bromstar's got it, and I know that Travis has got a copy, and I think some other people picked it up too. And even though, it might seem repetitious to have everyone look over the book and makes whatever comments pop into their head, but I'm so into this, I'm gonna enjoy everyone's videos if they make them. I actually, it's kind of embarrassing. I have a Kandy playlist. I probably will link it down below eventually, and it I will add all of the Kandy artist edition videos I can find to it, so I can watch them over and over again. And so yeah, definitely chime in. Or even if you don't have this book, but you've read Kandy, but you haven't talked about it yet, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. It's funny because there's definitely two separate tracks to my love of comics in a way at this point in this, after 40 years of reading comics. And those, one is the nostalgia track. That it's very powerful for me from these, for whatever reason, these things meant so much to me as a kid. And I discover now I can't remember much about the TV shows I watched as a kid, but I can remember all about the comics I read as a kid. Where I was, my emotions and everything. It's just the thing I've connected to. So there's the thrill of, it's kind of a trivial thrill of like hunting down the old Atlas comics, because the idea of Atlas comics fascinated me for when I was 12 or whenever it was they came out. They're not necessarily very good comics, but they have that history and they have that aura in my memory. And as does all the Jack Kirby stuff that I, got scattered issues here and there, and they played in my mind, in my dreams, in my imagination. And I thought, there were times when I was drawing that I thought I would somehow, there's no way you can do it, but that I would somehow be Jack Kirby someday. Yeah, so, but then the other track is completely not nostalgic. It's an appreciator of an art form, and I get excited over new exciting comics, about new audiences coming into comics, and love just looking at the art form and discussing with all of you guys about it. So many exciting things, and they do connect back to these old comics, but you don't have to be interested in these old comics to like them. And on some level, they're two sides of the same coin, but maybe not really. Definitely the nostalgia feeds into the appreciation of the art form, and my natural appreciation for the art form is why I am now nostalgic about the early things I read there. I don't think I'll ever fully understand the emotional connection. I don't know. I don't know where that came from fully. I'm a visual person. I'm a verbal person. I love stories. So, you know what? I'm kind of repeating myself of a video I did 3 years ago called Why Are Comics So Addictive? But anyway, you get the idea. And all of this I thought of while fiddling around with this, and watching listening to some people's videos this morning. As I've probably said many other times, one reason why you see me commenting on a lot of videos is because I have the opportunity to do it during the first half of my workday. I am listening to your videos, those of you who do videos that are listenable, and occasionally sneaking a peek, and occasionally taking a moment to take a mini break from work and type it in. My work in the afternoon is not I do a rather repetitive task at work in the morning, involving it's very important to my company actually, but I can do it while listening to you guys. So, too much information. This is definitely going to be a total ramble. Another thing I wanted to do was a few shout-outs. Most of all, and I know she has watched some of my videos. I don't know if she'll see this or not, but I wanted to make a big shout out to AlliReadsBooks. I meant to do this much earlier. She posted some screenshots of some really nasty comments that were put on one of her videos by a male troll. And I guess maybe he did other things, approached her on Google Plus or something. Anyway, what he did is not the point at all. But I feel like sometimes when people are attacking you or weird things happen on YouTube, you can get kind of paranoid. You can also burp from drinking beer. You can get kind of paranoid and start wondering how many people think this or whatever. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the way YouTube works and the psychology of people, women are often much more the target of this. So everything that troll said was utterly wrong, and utterly wrong about Allie. And I totally think she's fantastic. I think she's a ideal member of this kind of community that we have. She comes on, she's herself, and she talks about what she's reading, and that's perfect. And, if you want to dig deeper, she's a teacher who's talking about comics. Amazing. She's a grade school teacher, I believe. She brings in comics for her kids. She goes out and buys more comics at comic book stores when she knows what they want. That is like the most amazing thing ever to me. The ultimate teacher in my mind. And clearly she has a great personality and gets a lot of views. And so it might be jealousy, it might be anger at women, I don't know. But I was really kind of incensed when I saw that. And I think normally I don't see the bad stuff that the women YouTubers get, because you don't want to give those people attention at all. So then I'm not aware of it. But I want to say you're awesome, basically. And exactly the kind of reader and collector that I want to hear more from. I guess I also say that because I haven't seen too many videos from Allie lately, probably because the school year is just ending. Hopefully she's on a nice getaway from town. School just ended this Thursday here in Portland, and I think she's somewhere out here in the Pacific Northwest, so maybe her school's ended too. Anyway, that's really drifting off. This is going to be quite the rambling vlog. So 2 other people that I wanted to shout out are people, well, ironically, are people who I'm not sure if they're very aware of the community or not, but I'm enjoying their videos. I don't think they have many subscribers yet. They might become part of the community. Anyway, one is this guy, probably of my generation, named Chad, who does a series of videos called Chad's Attic. And he talks about whatever he's read that week before he puts it away in his long boxes. And you're in his attic and you're seeing his rows of long boxes, and he's talking about the comics, and he's incredibly interesting to listen to. I think he's made about four probably of these Chad's Attic's comic book videos, and I just hope he keeps doing it. So I'm hoping people will go check him out, subscribe to him. He seems like a cool guy to me. And then there's a woman who does I guess her name is Canon, because it's called Canon and Comics. And I think she's been doing it for a while. And I don't think she's trying to be part of the community, but she might not know the community exists. And I really enjoy her, and I don't think many people have discovered her, so I thought I'd point her out too. Yeah, I like hearing her thoughts. She's very intelligent and thinks about comics, which I like thinking about. So there's probably all kinds of other people I should be shouting out, but those are the ones that are on my mind at the moment, along with my beer. Let's see. So, talking about women, since Canon and Allie are women, segues kind of into something else that people were talking about a while ago, and I wanted to weigh in, but I didn't get around to it. And I think it started with Stacypool. Is that her full name of her channel? Anyway, Stacy, who recently got a job in a comic book store, and she talked about how a woman or 2 women who came into her comic book store kind of dissed her for liking comics. And that was kind of the last people, a woman, she expected women who, especially coming into a comic book store, would appreciate that she, a woman, was reading comics. And then a number of people responded to that. The other one I remember right now was Howlermouse, who, shares experiences like I do from 30 or 40 years ago, where you really were ostracized, or not ostracized, but there really were moments where it was kind of difficult or embarrassing or just uncomfortable to be a comic book reader. And I think, if I remember correctly, Howlermouse felt that it's always going to be that way, that it hasn't really gotten better underneath the skin. And I half agree with him and half feel like there are changes. I can see what he's saying. It's just the movies and stuff like that, and the actual comic books themselves may not get respect. But I do think it's getting better. But another event happened, which was, there's a woman, I can't remember her name now, but she's recently wrote a book that got a lot of attention about Wonder Woman and the history of Wonder Woman. And I guess she's a writer for The New Yorker, which in my mind is kind of the enemy anyway. My wife reads The New Yorker, my parents read The New Yorker, that's fine, but I've always disliked The New Yorker, or what it stands for. Although there have been plenty of good writers who've at times written for The New Yorker. Let's see. So she recently wrote an article in The New Yorker where she looked at, and this is already kind of old news also, but goes along in my mind with Stacypool and Howlermouse's videos and other people's, where she looked at the new A-Force. Is it called A-Force? The all-women Avengers comic. I guess she must have got a copy of it in advance because this came out before the Wednesday that comic came out. She looked at it with her 10-year-old son and another 10-year-old boy and made fun of it and talked about how the women look like porn stars and put it down in other ways. But this is a comic book with all women characters, or all women lead characters. I haven't read it. And it's written by two women. I don't know who drew it, whether that was a man or a woman. There was a big flurry on the internet about it amongst comic book people. I don't know if the rest of the world probably didn't even notice it. Just business as usual. And Willow G. Wilson wrote a response to it online, and because she's one of the writers of A-Force, and she is a strong woman writer, not some producer of pornography or whatever that this New Yorker writer viewed it as. And really, I think the New Yorker writer's whole approach to writing an article about this showed a disdain for comics, or a view of comics that's very old-fashioned. She thought the best way to look at this comic was to take it to two 10-year-old boys. It's a comic for women, or about women, presumably meant to be inclusive of women readers, and aimed at a much older audience than 10-year-old boys. And then she used the 10-year-old boys' reactions to it to make fun of it. And what this reflects to me is, even though she wrote a comic book about Wonder Woman, she wants it to be clear to the world that she's not one of these comic book people, and that comic books are for kids and idiots and all of that. And this is what the New Yorker stands for. Us against them. The us being a sort of cultural elite who is horrified by the lower levels of culture. And I think that when Stacypool had these women who basically were forced to pick up some comics for a college course, make fun of people reading comics, it was because of this insecurity that makes people want to be in the elite of whatever kind of, the cultural elite. Not the political cultural elite, but the elite of the arts part of culture, who only read the books that win Pulitzer Awards and Nobel Prizes, or, are considered great books by the New Yorker, or by other established critical establishments. People who want to feel superior because underneath they must be feeling inferior. And I think that these are the people who are going to be the last ones to accept comics, if ever, because they need people to look down on. And so after this woman wrote her Wonder Woman book, she needed to establish with her circle that at the New Yorker and her wider circle in the literary world, that she was not a comic book fangirl. So I think it's gotten a lot better. I can tell people that I read comic books. Most of them are a little dicey on it, but I don't think it, and I think if I were in high school, like from what I've seen of Spidey Senses videos, it wouldn't be as big of a stigma as it was when I was in high school. I basically felt so embarrassed by comics that I stopped reading them for 2 years. And I sold off my collection for $20, I think, when I was 16 for gas money. I bought more gas back then than it would now. So yeah, so I think there'll always be some people who will take a secret pleasure on looking down at people who read comics because they need somebody to look down on. If ever comics completely lose that stigma, they'll be looking around for someone else to look down on. I'm sure they looked at, or I'm sure many of them look down on video game players too. Although that may, as the older generation of the elite go away and everybody's been raised playing video games, maybe that will go away. We've all seen that, or I think a lot of us have seen that sales are stronger in comic book stores than ever. Digital sales are doing well, but they're not affecting comic book stores. Graphic novel sales, there's been articles recently that I've seen, are on the uprise, not just at comic book stores, but in bookstores. And I presume probably at Amazon.com, where a lot of people are buying their books. And if I weren't going to in-stock trades, that'd be where I'd be buying most of my books. But there's kind of been a truism that comic book TV shows and comic book-based movies don't bring in new readers. But listening to YouTube, I feel like a lot of the younger readers and newer readers are coming in because of movies. And those movies might be Marvel movies, and they might start off as Marvel readers, and if they stick with it, they'll be trying out all kinds of other stuff. And then I see all these booktube videos where clearly a lot of the booktubers, most of whom, at least who I've seen, are women. And they are picking up on non-superhero comics and spreading the word amongst themselves that when they come out in graphic novels, so that they're all talking about rat queens. Now they're all talking about Lumberjanes. And Lumberjanes has sold 60,000 copies last I heard, and it is sold out of 60,000 copies and back for like their 4th or 5th printing of their first graphic novel, their first collection. It is a graphic novel. It's one whole story, and it's an excellent one. And if you think about that number, 60,000, that's not a bestseller on the level of major bestsellers like Stephen King. But comic books from Boom in the comic book shops, I think, sell between 5,000 and 10,000 copies. So that right out the gate, the word of mouth through things outside of comic book stores mostly, like the booktubers and obviously other places, are spreading the word fast, and people are reading that. And I see some of the booktubers now go into comic book stores, or maybe they already have, but my sense is that some people are reading graphic novels that they get from bookstores and they hear about from their bookish friends, and are then wandering into the comic book store saying, hey, I'm kind of curious about this. And so in my thinking, the movies, millions of people see the movies, and only, an elite thousands of them at any given time decide to go check out the comic book stores. And some of them have a good experience. Others may just have a bad experience and not go, or it may be, there can be all kinds of other reasons. But I bet a lot of people are trying, and for some of them, it's sticking to them. I feel like that's the case of a lot of the new people I'm seeing on YouTube, or newer people, like people in the last year and a half. And that's very exciting to me. So I think that there is a cultural shift. Not like the whole culture is shifting over to comics, but I think comics are getting stronger. And I'm very excited by that. And I say excited, and then I think about my Kandy book again. Oh, Kandy. Kandy's such a weird name. Because I started reading Kandy like with issue 9 when I was a kid, it took me forever to learn where that name came from. I was totally puzzled by it. Why would a comic book be called Kandy? But it worked anyway. It's definitely a memorable name. I do think this is where I have my own problem coming back into comic book stores. I think like in the 90s I would go into comic book stores and they would, like in the old video store, they would have this closed off section with adult comics. And that was fine with me. You'd go in there and you get your Omaha the Cat Dancer and other things even sillier than that. But now I feel like with all these people coming into the comic store, including myself and bringing my daughter, comic books have to realize they're part of a community, the larger community. And I think since the 90s, starting in the 90s, but even more so, there's just more and more extreme stuff inside the comics. And that's fine with me. I mean, I think there should be all kinds of stuff. But I think that I don't have the right. I think that the covers are part of the public atmosphere. And I think that the placement of comics is part of the public atmosphere. I think that there's a number of comic book covers that would give my daughter nightmares, but would also kind of make my wife not want to go back into a comic book store. Like the covers of Colder, where he's like putting his... Some people think that's a really cool cover, but he's putting his finger up through his mouth and it comes out his eye and there's blood. And there was the thing that really got my daughter, because she never saw the Colder cover, were some covers of Spread that just had like guts everywhere. And if you're used to that kind of thing, it's just maybe almost funny. But I think it's... Now I'm like an old guy wanting to censor things. I'd probably in the 50s have my daughter burning comics, EC comics. But I think that things should stay under the covers. And I think covers should at the same time be clear in some sense how what the appropriate age would be. And I even... like different people in different parts of our country in the United States, and I can't speak for other countries, have different standards about language. A cover that says F Jesus is a real problem for some people, and I don't blame them. So how far, if you want to be part of a larger community, if you want to create a larger community, how far do you go on the covers? I do feel conflicted with that. I hate to tell anyone, censor yourself, but I kind of want people to censor the covers. And also, when they're making comics for kids, be more sensitive of all the different kinds of kids and all the different kinds of regions. I don't think you have to say hell or crap. I know crap is a very minor word. Hell is a very minor word in our culture right now. But in my community, people don't say that in front of their kids. In other communities, maybe they do. People walking down the sidewalk of my street say much worse. They walk down saying, fuck this, fuck that. But none of the parents in my community ever speak that way in front of their kids. So there's a couple of comics like Bizarro and Gotham Academy that I wish would just tone down the language even a little more. That sounds so conservative, but I just think that way parents of all stripes can feel comfortable with those comics. Just say crud instead of crap. Just say heck instead of hell. And it's just better. Your community standards are hypocritical, but it's a reality that you don't want your kids in a lot of communities to be speaking like adults. They will get into trouble. they will be treated badly by adults who may speak the same way. It's just a weird thing. It's a truth of our culture, but yeah, language is such a complex thing. Anyway, yeah, I was talking before about like how you can easily get paranoid, and women being trolled more. When I first started doing videos, someone made a comment about how I was always going like this with my nose, and that almost made me want to stop making a video. Now I think I have a thicker skin, but there's other things that have happened within the community that have made me a little paranoid and unsure, like is somebody my enemy or something like that, and I don't know, and it's just really weird. So if you've watched all the way to the end of this really long video, give it a thumbs down. That's going to be my signal to me that you've watched it all the way to the end. I always thumb up videos if I can. Sometimes I don't, sometimes I do. But anytime I have the opportunity to, I thumb them up. Sometimes before, like it's just started rolling and I thumb it up. If it's a community, someone I know to be in the community. Because I just viewed that as saying hi. But I wonder how many thumbs down I can get. Some people really worry a lot about the thumbs down, and I guess the people who put up their video and the first thing they get is 2 thumbs down, they have a reason to be paranoid. I haven't experienced that. I've gone back and looked at my old videos and say, oh, there were some thumbs down there. I didn't even notice that. Normally I say thumb up everybody. That I view it as just saying hi. I have to say, before I was all involved in this community, I might have thumbed down things just at random. And well, it's a whole other story, but I accidentally was a troll on someone's podcast recently. To tell you guys about that sometime. Well, it was a podcast that just really irritated me, and they're just always going off on creators, and I imitated the way they go off on creators going off on them, and I shouldn't have done it. I wasn't thinking of it being a troll or anything. I was just thinking, haha, you'll see what this sounds like, and you'll recognize yourself. But I don't know if they did, but their fans all attacked me for being a troll, and I kind of regretted doing it afterwards. Although my first reaction was to say something even more trollish. But that's the downward slope, right? Who knows what these trolls really feel? Where's the start of their anger? Everyone, I think human nature involves anger, and that's probably mankind's downfall. It might have been a good survival thing at one point, but it's like the double-edged blade. But anger and the acceleration of anger and anger versus anger, it just gets crazy. It's meaningless. So I make it my philosophy to back away from anger. I'm an angry person. I know it because I look at the music I listen to, punk rock and death metal at times. I listen to other music too, but that's definitely. Anyway, so that was supposed to be my end of my thing when I asked you to thumb me down. Thumb me down. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.